a lot of people that we know when we've been standing out here, and we've had people ask us about joining us, and I think there are people looking for a way to get started, showing that they care about equality. I mean, when I grew up, we had the myth of a colorblind society, and we thought that we were past all of this, and maybe if we had been talking about things more openly then, we wouldn't have all of the violence and problems that we still have now, or the discrepancies in income and safety. I believe that most people are inherently good and they want to do better by each other. Yeah, and that racism is something that's really hard for a lot of people to talk about, and the more people who start talking about it, the easier it gets to talk. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. On Tuesdays, not this Tuesday, not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, we'll be back here at 12.
Okay. So that's what I want to do is, what made you take your own individual approach to discussing this problem?
During the 60s, I was not available much of the time because from 1967 until 1970, I was in the military. I was drafted. And I did spend some time in Korea. I wasn't in the Vietnam actual war, but because of the Pueblo incident involving the North Koreans taking a ship of the United States into their port, they sent troops into North Korea, and I was one of the troops. I missed the action in terms of protest because of the protest of the 60s involving civil rights. Because of that, in the late 60s, in the early 60s, I was more in like the individual going to school, and I didn't get involved in the civil rights movement as much, except a couple of marches with the NAACP youth groups. So after that, in seeing also the problems that the Black Panthers were having, I decided that perhaps that was too much in your face, and that there could also be a positive message in that, in what we do in terms of civil rights, in terms of protecting civil rights. And it seemed to me that we had to get to the issue, the real issue. I'm angry about, the Black Panthers are angry about, white people are angry about. Why are we fighting each other? And that is because of 500-year history of fighting each other, and blacks being put in a place of underneath whites. So I decided that let's get to the real issue, why the Black Panthers are out there. Why is Black Lives Matter out there? And that is because we feel of inequality. And you may not, a white person may not feel it because they're not the same kind of position that we've been placed in 500, 400 years ago. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to look at the thing from a perspective of what do we have in common? And the most important things that we have in common is our humanity. And that has to do with the fact that we're all Africans. And that the only difference between me and you is that you being a white person is that you have a melanin deficiency. That is the only difference. You have the same heart, you have the same mind, you have the same spirit, you have the same soul, you have the same abilities to progress as I do in life. Now, you may be in a better position than I am at this point, and it was brilliant in terms of strategy as to the way it was handled in the United States. It had to do with the way the Constitution was formed. It was the way that the white slave owners decided how we can use the black man, and when we didn't need the black man, well, we'll either send them back to Africa or we'll do something else with them. At this point, of course, it meant that they did not send us back to Africa, but we are still in a position of no authority in some instances. However, some of us did get out of it because of our own efforts, and that's what all of us have to do. But it's good to realize, though, that a lot of this has to do with economics, politics, as to why we haven't progressed further. And I was very shocked at what happened here, because I thought the 60s were behind us. But we're going back to the 60s, and as you can see with this, we're actually going back farther than the 60s, because in the 20s, the black person's life was worth a plug nickel. So, with the Black Lives Matter movement, I still see a tinge of the in your face, and it's not because necessarily of Black Lives Matter, but it's some of the people who are in it who may be getting out of hand that need to be controlled. However, they still are not exactly talking about what I'm talking about.
Do you feel that they're feeling the same anger as the Black Panthers did?
Yes, I do feel it, and I do feel that they are not as in your face as the Black Panthers, but I do feel that they could be put off, or they could be taken as being put off by people, or that they're putting off people by white people who see them. However, I would march with the Black Lives Matter at any time because I know what they're all about. I have been I've looked through their information that they put online, and I know what they stand for and what they began standing for, and I still believe that they're standing for the same thing. However, a lot of times they're getting negative reactions because that's what people want to do. They want to cause friction.
Do you think
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you think that you could help temper the Black Lives Matter with a little bit of wisdom of your knowledge of civil rights?
Well, I can only say I can tell them what I'm telling you. And I can tell them where I'm coming from, and that's not going to change no matter who I talk to. And the fact is that I think that once they hear what I have to say, they're going to take a look at that too. Because this is a new positive message that we're giving out the truth about this whole thing involving race, because there's no such thing as race other than the human race, because all people, no matter what color or creed, come from Africa. I think they could use that message too.
So you want to remove the anger element and actually develop a goal for people to achieve.
Exactly. I want us to get down to the basics, something that the Pope can talk about, something that the President can talk about. The truth of why we're fighting one another. It has to do with our perceptions. Our perceptions are not necessarily facts. And the man that talks about this is a gentleman who did the DVD Journey of Man. Wells is a geneticist. He gets right down to it. We have the same genes going all the way back to Africa. And we could all find that out if we really wanted to. It seems to me to indicate that there's some communication problem, and there's also an awareness of the fact that a black body and a brown body is just as important as a white body. The bodies I feel are being treated differently and have always been treated differently in this country. As you can see when I bring this lynching sign into view. Because that's the kind of behavior since 1885 to 1965, there were over 4,800 lynchings that occurred in the United States that were counted by the NAACP. However, we're not talking about the violence that has occurred throughout the South and even in the North, where individuals, lynch mobs, have taken upon themselves to kill people. When Schwerner was found in the 1960s in Mississippi after he had been let go by the Mississippi police and had been picked up by the Klan and was killed. It took them several months to find him. However, they found bodies of black people in the street, in the swamps, all over Mississippi. So that is a problem. The police department, yes, that is a problem. Up until the body cameras were evident, and that also the cameras on the dashboard were given out, and the fact that people's phones were able to take pictures of what was happening. Until that started happening in the United States, the people were at will doing whatever it is they wanted to, the police, with dark bodies, with black bodies, in all cities in counties and state, because it was only the word of the individual perhaps who is deceased and the police. However, that's changed, and I'm glad to see that that's changed, and I do believe that police departments are taking a better look at their own police departments.
You think it's because of the introduction of videotape that has forced them to do that?
Exactly. That's what I feel. And they're being seen as perhaps not always being as truthful as they may report. So I believe that had a lot to do with it. But I believe we can do it in a positive way. It doesn't take a death of an individual for people to do the right thing. And that's what I'm out here for. I'm out here to let people know that there is a positive way of dealing with this whole problem. If we knew who we really were, we're all brothers, we're all cousins under the sun. And that's the whole difference. I'm going to be treated in a different way because of my skin color, because of what the sun has done to my body. And I'll have a lesser of a chance to succeed in life. There are black people who are passing at this time because they don't want to have to put up with that hassle of having to prove that who they are if they told people that they were black. So they don't, and they pass, and they do better a lot of times in life. But you see, we do have a president who is not light to the point where people think he's white. So he's run into a lot of different problems just because of his melanin.
Do you feel that Barack Obama has failed in his promise to deliver to the black people a more transparent government?
At this point, I would say I have very strong feelings that he could have done a lot better than he did. I don't think he used the bully pulpit as he could have and allowed people in black neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods, also for white people as well, to let them know he's on their side. I think this Mr. Trump has done a better job of doing that than he has, than he could have done. In that sense, I do believe that's correct.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you. Well, God bless you. We started getting to it towards the end. I could tell. I felt it coming out, and I could see you were confident with what we were saying. So.